go-to snack, probably pizza at least once a day.
I went to Wingstop, bucket of 10 wings, ate them all. Got an In-N-Out, ate the entire burger. Like, what do you want on the plate? I said carb. I ate the whole serving.
Effortlessly model skinny is a myth. Supermodels are intentional about what they look like and what they eat. And I'm going to prove it. What's true about most models, especially most supermodels, is that many of them actually are naturally skinny. So in some ways, it kind of is a little more effortless for them. But we'll get to that in a minute. Today, we're going to dive into what the supermodels are actually eating and what kind of workouts they're doing to look as impeccable as they do. So we're going to learn about how to eat like supermodels and what exactly that effortlessly model skinny mindset is, and whether or not it's possible for us to imitate it. Is it possible for us to also be effortlessly model skinny? Well, possibly. We'll get to that at the end. But first, let's touch on real quick what naturally skinny really is. If you follow my content, you know that I've talked about naturally skinny before. I even did a video about the myth of naturally skinny people. Basically, the gist of it, and what my belief is, there is no actual naturally skinny person, meaning there is no person alive who just has a super fast metabolism that can literally eat whatever they want and however many quantities they want and still stay really thin. It just doesn't happen, except for some people who may have some kind of genetic anomaly that does allow them to actually really eat thousands upon thousands of calories and not gain weight. That's a different story. For most people, though, most of our metabolisms do not differ that much. The reality is, with naturally skinny people who it seems like they can eat whatever they want, they're actually not eating that much. They're not eating as much as they think they are. Because at the end of the day, it all comes down to calories. It doesn't matter what you eat, but it does matter how many calories you ingest. So that naturally skinny girl who's just eating ice cream every day, she might be eating ice cream every day, but she's clearly eating enough just to maintain her weight. And I know there are gonna be so many people in the comments, well, no, I am naturally skinny. Or my friend is, my mom is. I guarantee you 100%, you are not eating as much as you think you are. You're just not. Same thing with people who overeat and claim that they're eating only 1,000 calories per day, but somehow they can't lose any weight. They're overeating. They're eating more than they think. I have just seen this in my own observance over the years from being around naturally skinny people, also being around models. I used to live with a bunch of models back in New York City when I was a model myself. I have been on both ends of the spectrum. I have been both overweight my entire childhood. I've also been too skinny at one point. And I've also been someone who had to pay attention to what I was eating from an early age and my eating behaviors, which made me more observant to the behaviors of other people, because I, like many of you, were always curious, how do these skinny people do it? How do they eat and not gain weight? Which is why I found out that most of them are not eating that much. Their idea of eating a lot of food is very different from our idea of eating a lot of food. But back to how models stay so skinny, because that is the question that many of us want to know. And this also seems to be like a topic of contention. On one hand, you have a lot of people who really just want to believe that all models have EDs. They're all purposely under eating. They're all doing, gross things behind the scenes to stay thin. They're doing drugs. They're doing whatever. Or the other group want to believe that naturally skinny means superhuman metabolism, and these girls are just gifted, and no matter what they do, they can't gain weight. The reality is, and I just know from my own experience, that neither of those things are necessarily true. Don't get me wrong, I understand that EDs are very rampant in that industry. I think most models at one point probably have had an issue with it when the pressure to be thin really got to them. But this does not mean that every single model in the industry is thin because of an ED. It does not mean that all of them have EDs. In fact, many of them, at least the ones I knew, ate pretty normally, but like I said, they just ate enough to sustain themselves. They're naturally skinny. They're not interested in food like we are, which makes it easier for them to not gain weight. And when we specifically talk about the supermodels, like the Victoria's Secret models, those girls are definitely eating. They have to be very healthy. They can't do substances. They can't be too skinny, and they do have to eat enough to maintain their beauty, to maintain their figure, and to look healthy. So these girls are putting in the work. So eating a potato chip a day doesn't get you there. With that being said, let's talk a little bit about some of these models' diets and their routines from different articles I've read online. And then we can talk about how we can implement some of their tips and some of their lifestyle into our own. So first, let's talk about Miranda Kerr, who was a very famous Victoria's Secret model back in the day. I say back in the day, I don't know, maybe what was it, like 10 years ago? So this article is from 2016, I believe, when she was still a Victoria's Secret model. So just a little bit of backstory on her. I think she always grew up having a really healthy lifestyle because one of her parents, I believe, had cancer when she was younger. And since then, her entire family has been really careful about what they eat and the chemicals and stuff because they were afraid of getting cancer. So I think that's something too important to note as well, is sometimes a lot of naturally skinny people, or even some of these models, part of why they aren't naturally skinny or have a healthy relationship with food is because they grew up with it. And so they grew up with different habits than maybe someone like you or I grew up with, right? And so I think that's something important to note. Okay, so it says for breakfast, Kerr revealed to Australian Vogue that she starts her day with hot water and lemon, followed by a green juice, before eating eggs or avocado on gluten-free toast. She will then have a chia seed, goji berry, and raw cacao smoothie a few hours later. The model told Body and Soul Australia that she will sometimes have a protein shake first thing in the morning, followed by eggs over easy, avocado, sauerkraut, sea salt, and macadamia nut oil. When Kerr revealed her bikini body secrets to Elle, she stated that her cold-pressed juice, green juice, is made up of kale, spinach, cucumber, and celery. So already we can see that, she's not just like a model, wakes up, has a cigarette and half a donut, and goes the runway. She is very intentional about it. And you can tell she looks amazing even now. I think she's in her early 40s. And this is all very healthy stuff. It's naturally lower in calories. I definitely believe, she's eating this stuff. I think she's also very good with portion sizes. I think that is something that we must keep in mind here too. Remember, models and naturally skinny people idea of a big portion size is usually not quite as big as ours, but I do think this sounds really healthy so far. For lunch, in her interview with Body and Soul, Kerr said her lunch would usually comprise of grilled chicken and salad. Her former trainer, Justin Gelbrand, told Women's Health and Fitness that he recommends his models eat either chicken or fish salad with a side of fruit for lunch. So again, more healthy, whole foods, very little processed food. It really shouldn't come as much of a surprise. I mean, that sounds really good to me. Again, it's naturally lower in calories. Chicken and fish are both really good lean proteins that don't have a lot of fat or high in calories. So that's always a really good lunch or dinner. It sounds similar to what I would eat on a normal basis too. I love my grilled chicken and my salads and my veggies. My go-to weight loss meal is always grilled chicken, some kind of green veggie like broccoli, and a small baked potato. It fills you up. It's naturally lower in calories. It's just awesome. Okay, so for dinner, Gelbrand was, I think, the Victoria's Secret model trainer. He trained like all the models back in the day. He suggests sashimi with brown rice as a great option for dinner and recommends avoiding soy, but sticking to chicken, fish, turkey, and vegetables. The model told Body and Soul that a typical dinner would consist of quinoa salad with chicken cooked in coconut oil and turmeric with spinach and walnut salad. She also noted that, in general, she tries to avoid sugar and wheat. So doesn't sound surprising at all that she tries to avoid sugar and wheat, a lot of the things that are higher in calories and harder to stop eating. So again, her dinner sounds similar to her lunch. It's just a lean protein, some veggies, and a complex carb. And I think that that's really important to remember in our diet. It's just a good kind of base to go from is always have some kind of lean protein, some kind of green veggie, and a complex carb, which is like potatoes, brown rice, quinoa, maybe even beans. Beans are also pretty high in protein. But these foods, there's a reason that both models and bodybuilders eat like this. It's because these foods, like I said, naturally lower in calories, but they help fill you up. They're very nutritious, and it's easier to be in a calorie deficit when you are eating these foods, and it's easier to maintain your weight when you're eating like this on a regular basis. For snacks, Kerr said in the same interview that she loves blueberries, almonds, goji berries, or an apple with some almond butter. She told Your Fitness, I always try to carry healthy snacks with me that are easily transportable, like fresh fruit, nuts, and seeds. In addition to this, she drinks 2 or 3 liters of alkaline water every day. I think that berries are a really great snack. Nuts can be too, but you do have to be careful with those. At least I have to, because they can be very addictive as well. They have a lot of calories for a very small serving. So when she's saying that she's snacking on this stuff, remember, portion sizes are key. So I'm sure it's very small portion sizes of almonds. So that is something to keep in mind. Let's see, treats. When it comes to indulging, her trainer told Women's Health and Fitness, believe it or not, I advise my clients to eat a little bit of dark chocolate or ice cream once or twice a week to ensure they don't splurge and start living with these indulgences every day. Kerr told Your Fitness, sometimes you can't avoid eating something that isn't so healthy if that is all there is to offer, but I try to make sensible choices most of the time, so I don't give myself a hard time if I have something a little naughty. Yeah, I mean, I think so. His advice up here, the trainer's advice about eating a little bit of something every single day, or not every single day, I'm sorry, once or twice a week. Yeah, look, if that works for you, me personally, I know that that is harder for me to do, to have sweets on a more regular basis, because yeah, he's saying, oh, just have like, when he says, okay, have chocolate or ice cream, he means like a tiny bit. Okay, a tiny bit, like a couple squares, and maybe like a couple spoonfuls of ice cream. For me, I just think it's actually easier to abstain for the most part from that stuff and only eat it on even rarer occasions. We'll get to more of that later. We'll talk about that. I do think this is where the difference is between the naturally skinny and the supermodel mindset comes into play in comparison with people like us, because yeah, it is easier for them to have just a little bit and then move on with their day. But I do like, you know, her mindset here. She eats healthy most of the time. So when she has to eat some French fries or something one day, it's not as hard for her to play catch up because she is eating healthy most of the time. And for exercise, so she told Elle she likes to work out in the morning and she does at least an hour of yoga, and then will either add Pilates or strength training with weights and resistance bands to elongate and tone her muscles. She says, I like to exercise every day, but I mix it up. Sometimes I'll go for a walk or run, or I'll do Pilates or resistance training. So she had a more recent interview and she was talking about her diet and workout. And her workout is similar to what it used to be, but she said she works out 6 days a week, so most days, and does about like 1 hour of like high incline, high tempo walking on her treadmill. And then she likes to do some resistance training and Pilates. And then she also said, like, when she does like to treat herself and have a cocktail, she has 1 shot of tequila with some coconut water. So I just think that's kind of funny and interesting to note, because it does show you the difference, I think, in their mindset and how they're wired. Like, that's a treat for her, is that 1 shot of tequila. Now moving on to Candice Swanepoel. I think that's how you say her name. So we all know her, another Victoria's Secret model, super gorgeous. Yeah, I love her. But let's listen to a little bit about what she eats and how she trains. She says, my breakfast varies depending on my mood. I do a nice beauty smoothie. It contains coconut oil, flaxseed oil, banana protein, some kind of antioxidant fruit like blueberries or strawberries, or some nut butter. I discovered it from doing research. She says, sometimes I like to have eggs and toast or make a grilled cheese. So the smoothies and juices seem to be pretty popular amongst a lot of the models I've noticed. And then the eggs and toast, yeah, I think that's a pretty filling breakfast. It's a lot of protein. And if she's having like a good bread, it's like a good complex carb. Even the grilled cheese, I mean, yeah, it's one of those foods I think you need to moderate. And maybe that won't be on your supermodel diet if it's harder for you to moderate. But that actually can be not too bad, because cheese does have protein. And again, if you're having a good quality bread, it's all about how you balance out those calories though, right? So I'm sure if she's eating a grilled cheese for breakfast, she's probably eating lighter in the day. Remember, portion sizes also very much matter. She says, to me, wellness is having a balanced lifestyle between personal and work. It's being happy and healthy. I don't like to restrict myself from certain foods that I want or kill myself at the gym. It's really what's comfortable for my body at the time and what's best at that moment. That is something that I have noticed about a lot of models, or even just naturally skinny people in general, is that a lot of them really don't work out that much. Now, for sure, the Victoria's Secret models, I think, is a little bit different, because their whole thing is their body. And when they're training for that show, for sure, they're working out. But like I said, from my experience, a lot of the models I knew and a lot of just naturally skinny people, I found that their workouts tend to be more lower key. Like, they do a lot of walking. Pilates seems to be really popular for them. But that is just interesting. I've noticed that over the years. I'm someone who likes to do a lot of cardio, a lot of everything, but it is something I think kind of important to note, because I think that is part of why it's easier for them to not overeat, because as we know, if you exercise too much, you will get hungrier. This is not me saying don't exercise, okay, or don't exercise a lot. In fact, it's actually the opposite for people like us who do not have this supermodel mindset and who are not wired this way. We will get to that later on, but I do think that that is interesting to note, and maybe why their appetites are not quite as high as ours. But I think it is interesting too, a lot of naturally skinny people, even though they don't exercise a lot or work out a lot, they actually get more movement than they think. And they've actually done studies on this. They found that thinner people tend to do more fidgeting or non-exercise activity. Thermogenesis is what it's called, or NEAT. It's just they do things that are not considered workouts, but they might be gardening, okay? They might be taking their dog for a walk. They might be fidgeting. They might be pacing back and forth. So they actually burn quite a lot more calories than the average person simply from doing stuff like that because it's harder for them to sit still. She says, how wellness has changed for me. She goes, the amount of time I have has changed. Now I have a lot less time to focus on myself, but I've always been in tune with my body. I started dancing when I was really young, and it just gives you a different sense of your body. That's something I did know about her. She was a ballerina, I think, for like 12 or 14 years, even before she became a model. Again, we're seeing patterns here. A lot of these models and naturally skinny people do tend to have backgrounds where they were already pretty active back in the day. Let's see. And she says, this is my favorite quote by her. I mentioned this before. I've been lucky. I was born with quite a fast metabolism. I'm the girl who orders the healthy plate with a side of fries. Your body is like a machine and everyone's is different. I know mine quite well. So I just think that is really funny because I think it really exemplifies this idea of naturally skinny and this idea that, they can just eat whatever they want and not gain weight. And it's kind of what it sounds like she's saying here. It's like, yeah, I order fries every single day. And I just, it's my fast metabolism. What she's really saying is she eats healthy most of the time. She orders that salad. She has a side of fries. Probably, let's be real, she's probably having like a handful of fries, a few fries. Okay. She's sharing it with someone else. She's not eating the whole plate of fries. And yeah, when you eat foods like that, in that way, it is easier to maintain your figure because it always comes down to calories, right? And so I'm not trying to dog on her or anything, not really. I just think it's funny because, like I said, in a naturally skinny person's mind, they think that's just eating so much. And it's just, I don't know what it is. I just can't gain weight. My metabolism's so fast. Reality is, it's just that they're eating a normal amount for them, that they're not overeating. And yes, we could all do that. In theory, we can, but it is harder for certain people who are wired differently and are more addicted to certain foods. So what she does for exercise. So she says, I've been doing my own kind of yoga. It's not traditional yoga, but I put on some music and mix in some Pilates and squat resistance stuff I've learned over the years. It's calm. I can meditate through it and some flow with some music. It's a little ritual for me. I do it every time I feel overwhelmed and stressed. I try at least twice a week. How often I do it depends on if I get my baby down or not. So yeah, again, she does a lot of yoga and Pilates. However, in a more recent interview, I believe this was from the past Victoria's Secret show, I think she did say that she does try to do more strength training now. And I think that you can actually tell both she and Adriana Lima looked amazing. I mean, everyone looked amazing at the show, but you can tell, I think, that she has put on some muscle. So I think that's important to note and, good for her. I think that it is good for everyone to do any kind of exercise routine. So I think what we can already tell from what I've already read about these two models' diets is that it is not so effortless. It may be more effortless for them because that is their lifestyle. That's how they grew up. And it's just easier for them to moderate their food, but they are clearly intentional about what they're eating. They clearly have a wellness routine that I'm sure in most part is fueled by their career. Their body is their business. So in that way, it does make it a little bit easier, I'm sure as well, because hey, if you're being paid for what you look like, then that's more motivation. But so far, everything sounds really healthy, really yummy, and not surprising to me. So now let's move on to Bella Hadid. So I like Bella Hadid. I will say that I think she might be a little bit skinny now, okay? But I wanted to include her because she was one of the models. I think she had a couple of videos where she's talking about I eat pizza every day or something. And I don't know, I like to snack on candy and stuff. And I think that, that got a lot of people talking because it's I don't believe her, or it's oh yeah, see, that's why you should just naturally skinny people can eat whatever they want. And I'm always going to say, she might be eating pizza every day, but she's only eating a little bit. I can guarantee you that. Okay. Anyway, so this is an article from Bella Hadid about her workout and diet. And this is from, I think, when she was a few years ago for the Victoria's Secret fashion show. So first it starts with her workouts. It says boxing is her go-to workout. Bella's physique is down to a combination of cardio and strength workouts with a heavy focus on boxing. When time is on my side, I train with my coach for intensive sessions. Victoria's Secret Angel told Vogue Paris. I run nonstop for 20 minutes, followed by a boxing session, and finally a series of weights targeting the abs and glutes. We keep the routines varied, so the sessions are always fun. So yeah, it sounds like an awesome workout. I think do you remember reading this about Bella, from, years ago when she was first doing the show. I did read that she likes to work out. She would work out sometimes like 2 times a day, working up to the show. And both she and Adriana Lima is another one. She's like a full-on athlete, okay? Because I tried her diet and workout, and that one was rough. But yeah, they do a lot more intensive workouts than some of the other models. So I do think that's interesting. I think Taylor Hale also came out and said, like, yeah, she also trains like an athlete. She's doing all this stuff because I do think being a Victoria's Secret model is different than just being any other kind of model, because it is really all about your body. At least from what I see, I think it is not even just about being skinny, but it's about having like a nice shape to your bodies. That's why I think most of the Victoria's Secret models, at least the bigger ones, they look really good. They look healthy to me. That's the kind of model skinny I want to be. And I think that it's actually more encouraging for me to read the actual healthy routines of these models. So, okay. The next thing she says, the supermodel is also a fan of bar workouts, which uses ballet techniques for a full body burn. Definitely boxing, but also body ballet. I've only tried it once, but I can see the long-term results amongst my friends. So yeah, okay, not surprising. I think it seems like a lot of the models like to do Pilates, and probably because it, I don't know, helps elongate and build more long, lean muscle. I personally, I like weight training. I don't mind Pilates, but it's not my favorite, only because I just feel like it's too slow. But I do like Pilates for like glute work and ab work. Those are good moves to do. So now a little bit about her diet. She says, I count on a smoothie, a juice, or a protein drink 30 minutes before the session. And then after the session, I eat something full of protein like chicken and whole grain rice. It's ideal to strengthen the muscle mass and to increase the effects of the session. And then more about her diet. It says, Bella's obsession with carbs is well documented. And for the model, balance is key. And they're probably talking about that video where she says she eats pizza every day. Plus, when you're working out as she does, you can afford to be flexible with your eating habits. Yeah, that's true. One of the reasons I like to work out a lot is because I like to, eat more. If you want to have a piece of bread, go have a piece of bread, she told People after the 2016 Victoria's Secret fashion show. I'm going to eat pasta right now. So I do believe that she eats carbs. I do. And there's a picture of her pasta. I do believe a lot of these models and naturally skinny people, when they say, I like to eat whatever I want, I do. Portion size, okay? Let's keep that in mind. Portion size is key. You can eat pasta, but if you're eating it every single day, you're not eating that much. That's all I'm going to say. Bella's go-to breakfast is an egg sandwich on a plain bagel, and she doesn't buy into diet fads. Let's see. For lunch, it's usually salmon, chicken, and veggies. If not, then pasta. I like having a good protein meal because I get really tired if I eat too much. So I will try to fill up on things that make me feel good. Then she goes, I order a lot of green juices and keep them around on set. I have ginger shots in a cooler, and I'll drink one if I'm feeling low. Yeah, so it does seem, again, we're back to the whole foods, right? Chicken and the brown rice and veggies, you can't go wrong there. I think, like I said, there's a reason why so many fitness people and models alike eat just like that. There's a reason. And also the juices, that seems to be something that a lot of them do. I actually don't do a lot of juices, but now I'm kind of curious. I actually have one in my fridge right now. It's a green juice. Might have to check that out. So the reality is that these supermodels, they are eating healthy, whole foods, very minimal processed foods, 95% of the time. They do indulge once in a while, but I guarantee you their indulgence is a lot different than our idea of indulging. Their idea of indulging might be like half a glass of champagne and maybe like 1 or 2 chocolate truffles. That's their idea of indulging. So I think that is something that is just important to remember. When you hear certain people talk about, oh, balance is key. And yes, I indulge and I eat whatever I want, whenever I want. Well, I'm sure they are. But remember, their idea of eating whatever they want and however much they want is very different than ours. They also are relatively active. Now, some of them have admitted to working out really hard, like Bella and Adriana Lima. They do a lot of boxing and cardio, and that's awesome. Most of them rely on lower resistance forms of training, like Pilates or yoga or walking, which is all totally fine. But the real question is, will the model skinny diet and lifestyle work for us? Well, the first thing to remember is that models, specifically supermodels, they are both naturally skinny and disciplined. So, like I said, they put effort into it 100%. I think it is a little more effortless for them though, because they do not deal with some of the issues that you and I deal with, like food noise, food addiction, and just breaking out of really bad habits that we may have learned in our childhood. That being said, we can all change at any moment. I'm proof of that. I came from a very unhealthy lifestyle, learned it from an early age, and have completely changed my life around. But in my case, I will in no way say that it was at all effortless. I still put effort in it today. It really does take a lot of planning and just the kind of mindset where I know I have to avoid certain triggers, or I know I have to push myself harder because I know I can very quickly default to just eating whatever I want, however much I want. And my version of eating that however much I want and whatever I want is very different than a naturally skinny person's version. But for sure, one thing I do know is sticking to the supermodel diet actually does get easier over time when you just do it on a regular basis. Besides the green juices and the smoothies, which I may have to actually look into. Now that I've been reading about it, there might be something to it. So maybe I'll try them out. But besides that, I do eat pretty similar to the supermodel diet just because it is also just the fitness model diet or just the healthy diet, which is just a lot of whole foods. So what this could look like for you is breakfast, maybe try a green juice. I don't know. It seems pretty popular, or a protein smoothie, or something very high in protein like eggs on some good whole wheat toast. I think you could also do something like some Greek yogurt with some berries and some nuts, but be cautious of the nuts. Always measure them out. And then your lunch and dinner should always be pretty much the same thing. Stick with things like chicken, fish, and turkey, always grilled or baked. Never fried, never add the breadcrumbs or fry anything. It just adds more unnecessary calories. Your carbs should be something like a complex carb. So sweet potato, even white potato, a brown rice or a quinoa, those are all good options. They are more satisfying and don't hit your bloodstream quite as quickly. So they do keep you feeling satiated for longer. And then of course your green vegetable, and that could be something like broccoli, asparagus, spinach. You really can't go wrong on green vegetables because they will keep you feeling full and satisfied. Or my observance, not a lot of the girls I knew really did a lot of snacking. I've said this in one of my other videos too before, is that a lot of models or naturally skinny people tend to, without even noticing it or doing it purposely, intermittent fast, not doing a lot of mindless snacking throughout the day, which I think is key. If you are going to do snacks, I think, again, something like Greek yogurt with berries is my go-to. Any kind of lower calorie fruit. Melon is great for that. I like apples and pears. Bananas are great, but they do add, the calories add up quickly. And at least in my opinion, I don't feel like they really keep me feeling that satisfied. I do eat them. I do like them. But if I am hungry and I'm in a calorie deficit, I would definitely go for something more like a pear or an apple because it has more fiber, more water, keeps you feeling fuller longer. Now, when it comes to treats, yes, that was another common thing that we heard from all these models. Oh, I do enjoy myself, kind of whenever I want, and I just have a little bit here and there. Again, if you can do that, then great. There is nothing wrong with that. My advice for you, if you are not built like these models and you do have a hard time moderating, I think there's nothing wrong with us admitting that. I admit it. I just have a hard time moderating. And for me, if I allowed myself to have a few bites of cake every single day or a square of chocolate every single day, that would start to quickly add up, where it was more than just a few bites every single day. And then I would just constantly be thinking about that sugar. I would constantly be thinking about eating more. If I knew it was in the pantry, I'd want to go back and eat more. For me, it's trigger food. That's why I don't keep a lot of processed food around me. It is just something that I have learned to accept, and I do better with abstaining than I do with trying to moderate. That being said, can you ever enjoy yourself? Of course, I definitely do like to enjoy myself, but it's more in special occasions. It's more few and far in between. And here's the other thing as well. When I do enjoy myself, I don't worry about having just, a few bites and then walking away or trying to be so super careful with it. I actually do just let myself enjoy it. Maybe I'll have a whole slice of cake, maybe a little bit more than that, because I know that, the next day I will get back on track. While we will never be effortlessly skinny like some of these models, even though it's not quite effortless as we determined, I do think that we can adopt some of their mindset hacks. So for example, one thing that I know I do when I go out to eat, when it's a special occasion, if I go to a restaurant, just like Candice Swanepoel said, she orders a salad as her main meal. She orders something really healthy and then has the fries on the side or some other kind of appetizer. And I have done this personally, and I do this personally. This has been something that I have done for a very long time, which is if I go to a restaurant, I always order as my main meal like the healthiest thing. So if it's going to be like grilled chicken and broccoli, or it's the salad. And then if I do want to just treat myself or just kind of taste things around me, then we'll order like an appetizer for the table and share it. So maybe it'll be something a little more indulgent, like like French fries or a flatbread or something else that's just not quite part of my regular diet. But if I am just trying to have fun and try it, then that allows me to both stay on track, fill up on my healthy meal, but also get to feel like, okay, I'm enjoying myself, I'm treating myself without overdoing it, especially when you are sharing things with other people at the table. So I think that is a great tip. Also try to stay away from the bread basket that they bring to the table. Not always easy, but if you can do that or limit yourself to one, make everyone else eat the bread at the table, then that is also a good hack for just limiting overindulging. Another thing I personally do is to plan or pick and choose which days you'll indulge. So like I said, I'm not someone who I could just have a little bit of a treat every single day. Can't do it, okay? And especially during times of the holidays, it's like, yes, we have lots of parties and lots of different events. And if we just indulge every time we had an event, that would also probably quickly add up. So I think for me, especially during busier times, I pick and choose which days that maybe I'm going to indulge at or what parties I'm going to indulge at. And then when I do, I enjoy myself. Like I said, I don't always want to just limit myself at like 3 bites of cake or 1 glass of champagne, right? I do think that life is meant to be enjoyed. But like I said, for me, it has to be more few and far in between. And I think when you pick and choose which days you will indulge, and then you get back to your healthy routine, one day of overindulging is not going to kill you. It's not going to break the bank. You will be okay. The key is finding out how many times per month maybe that you can indulge like that. Maybe it's just once a month. Maybe it's even less than that. Who knows? But you find out what works for you, and then you stick with your healthy routine the rest of the time. So in summary, staying thin really comes down to the same thing for everyone. It's sticking to a routine that works for you. It's finding a way of eating and moving that allows you to maintain the weight that you want to be. I do think the difference is with naturally skinny people is that it does come a little more naturally for them. So it is a little bit easier for them. I think for people like us who have to work harder at it, we're always going to have to work a little bit harder. We may always have to put more planning and effort into it, but honestly, once you kind of accept that, hey, this is not going to be effortless, I'm going to have to work hard at this, possibly forever. The funny thing is it actually becomes easier. It becomes part of your routine. It becomes your habit, and it doesn't feel as hard over time. So can we also become effortlessly skinny? Well, if you think about it that way, then yeah, kinda, but in a different way. For us, we have to identify what our triggers are, what our worst habits are, and then find workarounds. Food addiction very much is a real thing. In my experience, I have found that the less of it I eat though, the less I crave it. And actually the easier it gets for me to say no to stuff like that, even when it's in front of me. Working out and staying active is also, I think, a huge part of staying fit, getting slim, and something that we will all have to continue doing for the rest of our lives. This does get easier over time as well, but of course, it will also require some discipline once in a while, because even me, someone who loves to exercise, I don't always want to do it. Sometimes I have to push myself to do it. And I think for people like us who more quickly default to overeating, I think exercise is an even more important aspect to our lifestyles for maintaining our weight and not have to worry about it so much. And finally, one last thing to mention. Yes, we can all eat just like these models and exercise like these models, but it doesn't necessarily guarantee that we are going to look exactly like them. I think that is an important thing to point out. You're not just going to grow 10 inches overnight. You're not going to just all of a sudden have legs like a gazelle just because you are doing Candice Swanepoel's workout and diet. However, I guarantee you that if you eat like them, if you work out like them, or if you do any kind of consistent workout routine, you eat healthy, you stick to a calorie deficit if weight loss is your goal, you will also have an awesome body. It won't be Candice Swanepoel's body, but it will be an awesome body for you. You will see results. You will become the best version of yourself. You won't look like them, okay? We're all built differently. We all carry weight differently, but eating healthy, working out regularly, of course it's going to make you look better. It's going to make you look better. It's going to make you feel better. And even if we'll never be supermodels, at least it can make us feel like them, especially if you do my supermodels affirmations, which I will leave linked at the end of this video. But anyhow, guys, that's all I have for you today. I hope that this video inspired you to get your butt in the gym and to start eating really healthy. I know me just reading this stuff and looking at the pictures, I'm like, I'm going to get some green juice now. I'm going to go get some boxing gloves and try some boxing workouts because they look really awesome. Anyhow, thanks so much for watching. If you made it this far, please be sure to subscribe to my channel and like this video. Also, check out my book, 1 Year 100 Pounds, love guide for how you can do it too. I also have my 1 Year New You guided weight weight loss journals, which are just a great way to hold yourself accountable on your weight loss or fitness journal. They are formatted after the exact same journaling method that I used to lose 100 pounds and still use today. Journaling was super important for me losing the weight, still is today. The journals take you through a whole year of weight loss, and they are peppered in with some tough love motivational pep talks from yours truly. So if you like my style, then you will like the journals. You can check them out, the links below. Thank you again for watching. I will see you guys next time.